Imagine sitting in this tense Hanoi courtroom, right? You're watching 21 government officials face bribery charges.
And this was all related to the approval of those pandemic rescue flights.
Exactly. And that is not just some sensational headline we pulled from a local paper. It is a really stark, high-stakes warning about you know, the totally complex ecosystem waiting for foreign businesses.
Yeah, if you're just looking at a map, seeing a booming population and this skyrocketing GDP, it's easy to assume you can just set up shop and the growth will follow.
But that courtroom scene should really give you pause. Welcome to our deep dive into the absolute reality of entering the Vietnamese market.
Right, our mission today is to build you an insider's playbook.
We want to help you navigate these massive growth opportunities,
Right.
but also avoid the hidden traps that basically derail companies before they even print their first invoice.
And to do that, we're cross-referencing some serious source material today.
Yeah, we've got legal advisories from Clifford Chance, Russin and Vecchi, and Tillich and Gibbons.
Plus, we're matching those up with some gritty, on-the-ground due diligence guides from Asia Verify, Tika Trust Legal, and businesspartner.vn.
Oh, and we also have raw data from a massive business integrity survey from Vietnam's high-tech parks and that gripping Nada2.vn news report about the corruption trial.
We are really looking at that exact friction point where high-level legal theory just slams right into operational reality.
So I think we should start by dismantling this really persistent myth. People assume that if a business fails in Vietnam, it's because, no one wanted to buy their product.
Right, but according to the data from businesspartner.vn, market demand is almost never the fatal flaw.
Wait, really? Then what actually kills the business?
It's the structure. Companies actually fail because they commit way too much, way too fast.
Oh, you mean like in the legal setup phase?
Exactly. Foreign companies look at the market potential and make this huge mistake of choosing the highest commitment structure early on. They set up full legal entities before actually proving local demand.
Because they get trapped, right? Like in fixed compliance costs and all those strict labor obligations.
Yeah, and the Clifford Chance source adds some vital context here. Setting up a full entity means you have to navigate strict foreign ownership limits.
Like the 49% cap in public companies.
Exactly. And there are real property restrictions, too. Land use rights are generally capped at 50 years.
Okay, let's unpack this. So setting up a full entity on day one is like proposing marriage on the first date instead of just going for coffee.
Yeah.
But don't companies need a physical entity to prove to local partners that they are serious?
This raises an important question. Seriousness shouldn't be shown by throwing capital into a rigid structure. You show it through local pilots or an employer of record setup.
An EOR, right. So you basically keep your options open until the revenue is actually repeatable.
Exactly. An EOR acts as a legal buffer. You direct the staff, but the local firm absorbs the massive overhead and liability.
But, okay, let's say you do that. Once a company does enter the market, they immediately run into the reality of how business is actually done on the ground.
Yeah, which brings us to the cultural hurdles. It's an entirely different wall.
Right, we're talking about the ask and give mechanism or the caché sin cho.
And operating right alongside that is the deeply ingrained envelope culture, the Vana Ha Phong Bi.
And to really grasp that, we have to look at that Neta.2.vn article regarding the rescue flight trial.
Yeah, that trial really laid bare the mechanics of the envelope culture.
And just to be totally clear to you listening, we are impartially reporting the facts here without taking sides.
Yeah.
But prosecutors charged 21 individuals with receiving bribes.
Right, and the defense argued that businesses were basically victims of this ask and give system. They claimed companies were forced to pay just to survive and get those slates approved.
But then the prosecutors countered that, saying, no, taking fortunes while ordinary citizens were donating to vaccine funds, that's bribery, not some cultural thank you gift.
And that tension isn't just at the top level. The High-Tech Park survey found that 50% of companies say officials use routine regulatory compliance to extract informal payments.
50%?
Mm.
That is wild. And local companies often view those facilitation payments like, a Tet holiday gift under $1 million V&D as just a normal cost of doing business.
Yeah, they just see it as grease for the wheels.
So if local businesses see this as just the culture, and 50% of companies are getting squeezed for routine government services, how is a foreign company supposed to survive without playing along?
Well, what works for a local SME is essentially a death sentence for a multinational.
Because they're answering to completely different rules, right?
Exactly. They aren't just answering to local customs, they're answering to international law.
And that conflict between local survival tactics and international law is exactly where global regulators step in.
Right, which brings us to the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, or the FCPA, based on the Russin and Vecchi source.
And the reach of the FCPA is huge. It applies to U.S. companies, citizens, and even foreign nationals who promote unlawful activity.
Yeah, there are 5 core elements to an FCPA violation. It's an offer or payment to a foreign official with a corrupt motive to influence acts in order to retain business.
And some sectors are massive targets, like construction, oil and gas, telecom, and particularly pharma,
Oh, pharma is a minefield. 86% of hospitals in Vietnam are state-owned.
which means a local hospital purchasing manager is legally classified as a foreign government official.
Exactly. So buy them dinner could trigger a federal investigation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like you're playing a soccer match in Hanoi, but the referee is sitting in Washington, D.C. with a red card, and your own teammates have a financial incentive to report your fouls.
Right, the SEC whistleblower program. It is a game changer.
Because whistleblowers can get 10 to 30% of the collected fines, right? Assuming the penalty exceeds $1 million.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, those high whistleblower bounties change the internal risk dynamic entirely.
I mean, the money involved is staggering.
It really is. A manager might think they are secretly paying a bribe to secure a contract, but they are actually creating a $1 million lottery ticket for any employee who finds out.
Wow. So because the legal stakes are just that high, simply having some corporate compliance rulebook isn't enough.
No, not at all. It has to actually work in the Vietnamese cultural context.
Which is exactly what the Tillich and Gibbons and high-tech park sources talk about. You have to effectively localize your anti-corruption policies.
Right, just translating a global code of conduct into Vietnamese isn't going to cut it.
You need specific local policies, like explicitly addressing the Tet holiday gift-giving we talked about.
Exactly. And the training itself must be localized. You need real-world, gray area role-playing.
Because if you just give them a dry lecture, what happens?
Local staff will just view the rules as out-of-touch foreign values that only restrict their ability to win business. They'll just ignore them.
And then there is the massive risk with intermediaries. If a government official just casually recommends a specific local agent to you,
That is a glaring red flag. You have to walk away immediately. It's almost always a masked bribe.
so what does this all mean? If I catch an employee paying for a client's meal with their own personal money, which the survey noted local staff sometimes do to hit their KPIs, does that still put the whole company at risk?
Oh, absolutely. Willful blindness is not a legal defense.
So headquarters can't just claim they didn't know.
No, the company must actively investigate anomalies and support whistleblowers. Otherwise, employees will just continue treating wrongful payments as business as usual.
Right, which means protecting your company internally is really only half the battle. You also have to protect yourself externally.
You have to know exactly who you were doing business with.
And that's where the mechanics of due diligence and proper financial setup come in, pulling from Asia Verify, Tika Trust Legal, and Clifford Chance.
The first rule is you always verify partners using the National Business Registration Portal, or the NBRP.
You're checking their enterprise registration certificate and their tax ID, right?
Exactly. You are actively hunting for red flags.
Like what? What should people look for?
Things like mismatched tax codes or shifting ultimate beneficial ownership, the UBO.
Oh, and a registered business operating out of a residential address. That's a classic one.
Yeah, that's a huge warning sign. But it's not just the partners. The financial setup for your own capital is incredibly strict, too.
This sounds like buying a house. You don't just look at the fresh coat of paint. You hire an inspector to check the foundation, the title, and the plumbing.
What's fascinating here is how interconnected these administrative steps actually are.
Like with the capital accounts.
Yes. Your capital must be deposited in a specific capital contribution share purchase account in Vietnamese dong.
And if you don't use that exact specific account,
If you ignore that setup phase, you legally cannot remit your profits out of the country later.
wait, seriously? So you could be totally successful but trapped?
Exactly. You can build a highly profitable business in Vietnam, but completely fail to get your money out. It functions as a one-way valve.
Man, that is brutal. Okay, so let's quickly recap this journey for everyone listening.
It's a lot to take in, I know.
It really is. So first, don't rush into full entity commitment. Use an EOR. Next, recognize the intense everyday pressures of the envelope culture. but do not play the game.
Right, because you have to respect the long arm of the FCPA, especially with state-owned entities like hospitals.
And you absolutely must localize your training with real role-playing.
And finally, perform absolute due diligence on your partners and use the correct capital accounts.
Exactly. So as we wrap up, what's a final thought our listeners should be mulling over?
Well, the high-tech parks in Vietnam are already creating these compliant territories where businesses push back against bribery together.
Oh, wow. Like a collective resistance.
Yeah. So as Vietnam continues its massive integration into the global supply chain, could this collective resistance mean that the envelope culture is actually on borrowed time?
That's a great point.
And if so, are the companies relying on bribes today actually accelerating their own obsolescence?
That is definitely something to think about. If the rules of the game are fundamentally shifting, the old survival tactics might just be a dead end. We highly encourage you to apply these insights to your own strategies. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.